Hello. Hello, hello. What's going on? Hey, thank you so much for joining me. So, uh, I have a surprise for you, but it's not going to be for tonight. If you're on my Facebook page, it'll go out there tomorrow first. I don't think I'll be putting this on Facebook or YouTube rather, because there's some music in the background. You can't understand what the music is, but they don't care. As soon as they hear something, even Facebook every now and then would do that. But anyways, hey, thank you so much for joining me. My name is Will Johnson. UniteAmericaFirst.com is the website. UniteAmericaFirst.com. As promised, I have some stuff that I want to share with you tonight. I talked about it in a brief video last night. Had a massive headache. It was just pounding, boom, boom, boom. But I'm doing great. I'm doing a lot better today. Thank you so much for your prayers. Still in the fight. Still in the fight. Okay, so let's get with this. Do me a favor. Hit the share button on this. If you haven't already, hit the share button. Please hit the share button. We're going to try to get this out. So before I get to what I was talking about last night, I want to share something with you from Tucker, where he's talking about the FBI. And the running thing right now is the left. They're all saying that, oh, you hate the FBI. You want to defund the FBI, don't you? Do you know what? We don't want to defund the FBI, but the seventh floor, they need to go. The seventh floor that have been doing all this corruption, they need to go. I think we're all in agreement on that. And you know what? The left, they talk about defunding the police, but they don't want to defund the seventh floor of the FBI because they're doing the bidding of the Democrat Party. But, as I mentioned before, the Democrat Party, along with the FBI, they've been going after President Trump for day one. They've been targeting President Trump, trying to figure out any kind of way they can make up something, lie about it, get everyone to believe that President Trump committed crimes, and they can't list the crimes. They just say that he committed crimes, right? Like that analogy I always talk about, how they say President Trump murdered somebody, but there's no missing person report, or there's no missing body, there's no bones, there's no crime scene, nothing. They just said we have to keep investigating until we find a murdered body somewhere. That's exactly what they do with everything when it comes to President Trump. But not only that, you have the FBI constantly lying, right? They're constantly lying. And it's not me saying it. There's been multiple proofs about it. You remember the whole Russian dossier?
Russia,
Right?
Russia.
We all remember that. How can we forget about that? Right? They did that. They went along and they pushed it like it was real and it was completely fraudulent. The same thing when it came to them raiding President Trump's home. Why not? And now the judge said that there's no reason to keep this sealed because the Biden administration wanted a federal judge to seal the affidavit. Why would they get involved? They weren't even involved supposedly when the raid took place. They had no idea, but they did know. Or why in the world would they be trying to keep the affidavit sealed? Why do they want to keep it silent? Why don't they want us to know about it? What is it that they're hiding? If this is the smoking gun that they've been looking for to show President Trump finally committed a crime, don't you think they would be wanting the entire world to see it? You know that they would. They leak everything else. Why wouldn't they leak this? Why wouldn't they want this information to be out? And what's really got them up in the roar is because President Trump is saying, release the whole thing. Allow the American people to see the entire affidavit. So think about it. If you're guilty for something, why in the world would you want everyone to see it? If you're guilty of something. And I told y'all, they did this to themselves. The Democrats have done this to themselves. And they put President Trump in a position they don't like. They did it. All they have to do is leave the man alone. Let him go. They can't even go a day without talking about him. Why? Because President Trump lives rent-free in the space that they have in their head. There's nothing else in there but Trump. Nothing else. They got their whole wokeness in there, but they keep a little compartment in there. It's a big compartment just for President Trump. To prove my point about the FBI, with the whole corruption, the seventh floor of the FBI, you remember Whitmer, Gretchen Whitmer? Y'all remember? Apparently it come to find out that the FBI was in a kidnapping plot with Governor Whitmer. And they was trying to blame it on Trump supporters. They literally were. Listen to this, because even Tucker is talking about it. Tucker actually bringing it to light. So you know they don't. This is part of the reason why they don't like Tucker, because he's so on point. Listen to this.
Consider the Gretchen Whitmer kidnapping case. You may remember that story. It's from the fall of 2020. You may even have followed it a little bit and heard how it ended. So it seemed like a terrorism plot was in fact a setup by the government to make a group of ordinary people in Michigan look like terrifying right-wing extremists, those violent white nationalists Joe Biden is always mumbling about. Well, it turns out there aren't enough of those people in real life. They're pretty rare, actually. It's not a very racist country, despite what they tell you. So the Justice Department had to go create some, and they did. And that's not just our opinion. That was the finding of a federal jury in Michigan. So it's a shocking story, really. But the details of that story are even worse than that. They are beyond belief, and we'll tell you what they are in just a minute. But first, to set the scene, here is Gretchen Whitmer herself, governor of Michigan, announcing that she was the intended target of a terrorism plot. This is from October 8th, 2020.
Earlier today, Attorney General Dana Nessel was joined by officials from the Department of Justice and the FBI to announce state and federal charges against 13 members of 2 militia groups who are preparing to kidnap and possibly kill me. If you break the law or conspire to commit heinous acts of violence against anyone, we will find you, we will hold you accountable, and we will bring you to justice.
Oh, we'll bring you to justice. I'm so important that militia groups have organized to take me out. What a self-aggrandizing description. But the last thing she said, we'll bring you to justice. Well, they actually tried to do that. They had a trial and then a retrial. And thanks to that, we have testimony and cross-examination that reveals what actually happened, how the FBI engineered this plot. Now, most of the media were paying zero attention to this. Julie Kelly of American Greatness has actually covered it. We're grateful to her for what she's found. So here's the outline. In early 2020, a 35-year-old Army veteran called Dan Chappell, nicknamed Big Dan, was working as a contractor for the U.S. Postal Service. He drove delivery trucks. He was scrolling Facebook one night, and Chappell says he found a pro-Second Amendment group called Wolverine Watchmen. He says he just happened upon it. So Chappell testified that he was concerned by the group's criticism of law enforcement. So he went to a police officer friend of his and asked for advice. None of the messages within the group violated any law. But somehow, within a week, Chappell wound up connected to the FBI, to several FBI agents, including a special agent called Jason Chambers.
Y'all remember any of this? Y'all remember when this was going down? And then once it came out that the FBI was all involved in this, it kind of like went hush hush. And they probably don't like the fact of Tucker even talking about it. And the reason why they're talking about it, because the 7th floor of the FBI is completely corrupt, 100% corrupt. And that's what the other FBI agents, and I'm the biggest one. I'm constantly saying that, I support law enforcement. I constantly say it. When I've gone out and I've done videos and I'm live and I tell people, I've asked people in the past, tag the FBI, tag the CIA, tag the DOJ, tag your local police department. I've done that multiple times. Even when I'm just sitting here in the studio, I've done that. But it's the 7th floor of the FBI that's completely corrupt. And they push their hammer. They're putting their foot down on people below them, below the 7th floor. That's why you have FBI agents right now coming out talking about how the 7th floor is completely corrupt. There are whistleblowers happening in the FBI. That's why I said there's good men and women still in the FBI. I'm sticking to that. And we're all sure now. We all know, because Mike Pence, he's defending the 7th floor where the corruption is. He's defending them. That's the part that needs to go away.
Now, we learned through testimony in the trial this week why Chambers was interested in the case. It turns out that Chambers, in violation of FBI policy, was running a side hustle. He just incorporated a security firm called EXE Intel, and he saw his work on the Whitmer case as a way to promote his own business. We know that because throughout 2020, someone affiliated with his business, their Twitter account, repeatedly tweeted non-public information about the kidnapping case that Dan Chappell was building for the FBI. So it's not surprising, given the built-in incentives here, which were against policy once again, that Chambers appeared to do everything he could to make sure the investigation went according to plan. Now, no investigation can go according to plan because there shouldn't be a plan. An investigation is the process of finding out what happened.
You know, that's the problem with Tucker, because he's talking about common sense, about what happened, not according to plan. And it's the same thing the Democrats have been constantly doing with President Trump, right? They're making up something and they're hoping that it goes according to plan. They make it all up, and then they expect you and I to believe all of it. They expect you and I to just go right along with it. Like, oh, there's nothing there. They're doing their jobs. This is the FBI, the 7th floor of the FBI. They're great. Yeah, no, they're not.
An investigation is not the process of orchestrating things to happen. But that's exactly what this became. In all, the FBI, with Chambers as the handler, paid Chappell, Big Dan, more than $60,000 in the course of just a few months. Today, Chappell testified that he made more money working for the FBI in 7 months than he did working for the United States Postal Service over the course of an entire year. So there's a lot of money moving from the FBI, the federal treasury, to this informant. So the FBI told Chappell that in exchange for all of that money, he needed to start assembling a group of right-wing extremists for the FBI to prosecute. They made the whole thing up. And he did that with the FBI's help. Within a few weeks, the FBI created a new Facebook group called Patriot 3%ers. This is why you should be careful of Facebook, by the way. Oh, there's just this group. It looks interesting. Yeah, okay. So Chappell and several members of that group then attended a protest at the Michigan State Capitol. Look at you bringing people together, the FBI handler texted Chappell. Now, throughout that protest, which didn't look a whole lot different from the January 6th protest, Chappell kept in close touch with federal agents. He informed the feds that a 37-year-old man called Adam Fox was at the state capitol during the protest. Now, Adam Fox was got to be one of the least powerful people in our society. He lived alone with his 2 dogs in the basement of a vacuum repair shop. Why? Because he had no money whatsoever. In fact, he had so little money that in order to get running water to brush his teeth or use the bathroom, he had to go to a nearby Mexican restaurant and use their men's room. So Chappell began texting this diabolical mastermind, Fox, hundreds of times. But Fox seemed inherently moderate, actually. He wrote things like this, quote, "Our goal is to restore the constitutional republic." Fox also said, quote, "In our hearts and minds, we are not domestic terrorists." Oh, sounds very dangerous. So based on those text messages, the FBI gave Chappell more instructions. They provided Chappell with several $5,000 limit credit cards, and they told him to give those credit cards to Fox and tell him to spend it on guns and ammunition. So Fox, despite the fact he had no money at all, he had to use the men's room in a Mexican restaurant to brush his teeth, refused. On 5 separate occasions, he refused to take the credit cards to buy guns and ammunition. Then, what a terrorist. Then in July of 2020, Chappell suggested that Fox and others fire rounds into the governor's mansion as well as at her cottage. But the alleged plotters, including Adam Fox, again refused. They didn't want to hurt the governor. Ultimately, in August of 2020, the group started to splinter. Chappell and other informants were instructed to keep the group together. No! Keep it together! Keep the threat real! So they introduced another undercover agent who pretended to be an explosives expert. He showed the group a video of a bomb that blew up a vehicle to prove he knew what he was doing. Where'd that video come from? Well, it was made by the FBI. Is this shaking your confidence a little bit? These details are real, by the way. They came out at trial.
You know, I'm listening to this. I'm going to be honest with you. This is the first time that I've listened to him saying this. And I'm like, this is unbelievable, right? This is the same FBI that they want us to believe is doing a great job. The same FBI. And all of this information coming out about the FBI, and they still expect us to trust them. There's a reason why Tucker is even talking about the FBI this way. There's a reason why he's letting all this information out. And, you know, millions upon millions of people tune in to watch Tucker daily. And so, you know, the FBI is aware of what Tucker is showing here. They know that they've been caught red-handed, or in this case, blue-handed. Because the FBI, they're doing the bidding of the Democrat Party. through and through. This is like they're doing the corruption right in front of our faces, and they're like, there's nothing you can do about it because we're the government. We can do this. I mean, that's literally what they're doing. And the government is supposed to be for the people. Keyword, for the people. And another keyword, by the people. But these people have put themselves on pedestals like they can't be touched, like they're kings and queens. Like they're the rule makers, right? Because they make the laws, but they're above the law themselves, but no one else is. When they say no one's above the law, they're talking about us. They're not talking about themselves. Because they say we make up the laws, so we are above the law. That's the attitude that they have.
Then the Bureau recruited a convicted felon and a longtime FBI informant called Stephen Robson to introduce a new idea to Fox as well as to Barry Croft. This time, the idea was to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer. Robson, with the FBI's money, organized several events, including a national militia conference in Ohio, training in Wisconsin, and a meeting in Delaware. FBI orchestrating all of this. On July 18th, 2020, at one such militia meeting, again, organized by the FBI, when they tell you, oh, right-wing extremists. In this case, they created them. So at this militia meeting, an alleged plotter called Ty Garbin rejected out of hand the idea of kidnapping Gretchen Whitmer. Didn't want to do it. No, I don't think so. Kidnap the governor? No, we're not crazy. We just want a constitutional republic. Okay. Then the topic came up again in August, and then another defendant called Daniel Harris was equally adamant. No snatch and grab, he said. I swear to effing God. So clearly, they said it emphatically, out loud, explicitly, these are people who are not interested in kidnapping Gretchen Whitmer, the governor of Michigan. But the FBI kept pushing. The FBI informants drove the defendants to Gretchen Whitmer's home. Then they suggested killing the governor of Virginia, also a Democrat. On September 5th, 2020, FBI Special Agent Jason Chambers texted Chappell, quote, "Mission is to kill the governor specifically." What country is this?
Exactly.
To pressure one of the defendants, a man called Barry Croft, into doing that, one FBI agent admitted this week that a female informant slept in the same hotel room as Croft. It was a honey trap. FBI agents also testified this week that they regularly got high with Adam Fox. They smoked weed with Adam Fox. They said he was so high, in fact, he was high in all of his meetings with them. Again, that's against FBI policy. You can't just give drugs to people and hope they do something bad. Well, after all of this failed to produce a kidnapping plot, it fell on yet another FBI agent called Richard Trask to build the criminal case against the defendants. Now, that same year, Trask, who has now been convicted of beating his wife, called Donald Trump a piece of excrement on social media. Really? Yeah. Just nonpartisan federal bureaucrats, public.
Wow. And this is the same FBI again that did the dossier, that spied on President Trump. The same FBI that worked to try to make sure President Trump did not become the president in 2016. The same FBI that raided his Mar-a-Lago home, and they raided his home after they got boxes in June, 15 boxes in June. So the FBI knew what he had. And have y'all heard this rumor that's been going around? And it's just a rumor. They're trying to say, well, who was the whistleblower? Because of the liberal media, and I've noticed this, the liberal media, they've constantly been saying that there's a mole in President Trump's camp. Like there's a snitch in his camp. Well, it's the liberal media saying this. And now they're to the point to where they say it's Jared Kushner, he's the one doing it. No evidence of anything. They're just making it up. And they do this so then right-wing people who support President Trump, right-wingers, will believe this nonsense. I'm pretty sure if he was undermining President Trump after all of these years, he would have been out. There's no way that he would have still been there, right? President Trump has another daughter that hates President Trump, and she's not in there. She wanted a position in the cabinet, and he wouldn't give it to her because he knows she's not right. She's not right in the head. So if it was the case with Jared Kushner, that would have been the same thing. And a lot of people are saying Jared Kushner was the Antichrist because he was doing all of these things with these Arab nations, bringing together with Israel. And people said it. And I'm like, why are y'all saying this? Because it's not true. And look, they were saying this 4 years ago. And do you believe it still? It's not true. Anyways, let me get to what I was talking about last night in a short video that I did. And I just did it on Facebook because I was having a major headache. But tonight I'm doing great. And thank you again for the prayers. Listen to this, because in the state of Florida, Ron DeSantis, he is again fighting for the well-being of children. The Democrats, they can't stand it because they want to be able to sexualize children as much as possible. They constantly do. These teachers, these leftist teachers, when they say, well, we just want to teach them to be loving and to be inclusive. That's not their job to teach kids to be loving and inclusive. They need to teach kids how to be respectful of others, and that's it. And teach them how to do 2 + 2 = 4. You're not supposed to be teaching them how your feelings about others are. That's not your job. That's their parents' job. We don't need you doing that. But you know what? They all have that same mindset. And in actuality, they don't want to call it sexualizing children, but that's exactly what they're doing. Now, you have MSDNC. There's this new show on there with this female named Alex. And she hates Christianity like no tomorrow. And it's all in her face. It's all in her mouth. And she's not even hiding it, because she decided to take a trip down to Florida and talk to a so-called whistleblower that went to this teachers conference that Ron DeSantis, I guess he didn't put it on, but he orchestrated it, or he had it put in place. So there's this whistleblower teacher that decided to come out and talk about it. But see, it's not the problem of them trying to sexualize children. That's not the problem here. It's not the problem that they're trying to teach children to be racist with one another, tell white kids that they're oppressing black kids, and you're black kids, you're just victims because these white kids have everything you don't, right? Not that. They're upset because Ron DeSantis is wanting the state of Florida to go back to the U.S. Constitution, to go back to having prayer in schools, to go back to kids acknowledging the 10 Commandments. That's what they're upset about. That's what they're angry about. Think about what I'm telling you. They're not angry. They're angry because Ron DeSantis is preventing them from sexualizing children, but they're extra angry because Ron DeSantis wants to go back to the original Constitution, which I'm for that 1,000%. We need to go back to it. We are a Judeo-Christian nation, and I'm standing firm on that. And I know these Democrats, they can't stand to hear that. Oh, my God, listen to what he's saying. He's a Judeo-Christian. Oh, my goodness. I should have put on my Christian nationalist T-shirt. But they hate it. Listen to some of this. And as I promised last night, I said, I'm going to share some of this with you. And on top of that, they're going to even talk. She even talks about how the U.S. Constitution, because it was written a long time, and it's kind of, I'm paraphrasing, it's kind of out of date. But just listen to some of this.
Misconception. The founders desired strict separation of church and state, and the founders only wanted to protect freedom of worship.
Yeah, so this kind of misconception thing followed us throughout the entirety of all of the sessions. They would kind of hone in on, these are things you might know to be true, but they're a misconception. And so this was a big one for this workshop, where they legitimately said to us, the founders didn't want this strict separation. They wanted religion to influence people's values.
Because Christian values. Listen to what the other lady named Alex says, because she despises Christianity, and just based on her actions, what she's saying, that's my perception of her. Listen.
And specifically Christian religion.
Yes.
Because there's a long wind-up about how it's about Christian tenets, and that's what the founders intended. And so when they talk about this church, they're really talking about the Christian church.
Right.
They're really talking about the Christian church. Now, think about it. They don't have any issues with Islam going into schools. There's no issue there, right? There's no issue. These Democrats don't have any issues with that. As long they even allow them to pray. But if you're a Christian, you can't pray in schools.
And this is the end thesis of this whole presentation, or this is the end conclusion that they want you to come away with.
Right.
I mean, it doesn't really feel like this doesn't feel like a training slide. This feels like, to borrow a phrase from the governor, indoctrination.
You hear this? They're saying is literally indoctrination because they want you to go back to a Judeo-Christian, what the founding fathers started out as. They don't want you. It's like indoctrination. But they don't see indoctrination when it comes to them sexualizing kids. Why is that? Someone please explain it to me. What's the problem there? Why is it different there? See, I support this because we didn't have all this crime like we have it today. We didn't have all this violence. We didn't have the shootings. We didn't have all this chaos in schools. That didn't take place until after the Democrats were successfully able to remove God from schools. Then we saw all of it taking place. And see, the demons, they want to keep God out of schools as much as possible. And of course, they're talking about the separation between church and state, right? You know, the separation between church and state is not in the U.S. Constitution. That's something else, again, apparently that the Supreme Court came up with, talking about separation between church and state. It's not in the Constitution. Right? But Ron DeSantis, just like Roe versus Wade, he wants it to go back to the states, the way it should be, the way the Constitution called for it to be. But they don't want it because they want to be able to control what you believe and how you believe. They really do. Listen to this.
Tiana Album, the teacher who blew the whistle on those civics trainings. And she walked me through what the state of Florida wanted her to teach students about one of the most fundamental principles of our government. The thing that many people believe makes America America, the separation of church and state. Session purpose: articulate the founders' view of separation of church and state and their view of religious liberty. Church and state, the wall between the two coming down.
Right.
What are we learning here, Tatiana?
So this slide was coupled with a discussion about how the separation of church and state may not be a wall. It's more like a fence, like a graded fence. They even mentioned. So it was weird. This was definitely when the flags were going off in my mind, where they were immediately kind of saying, no, there wasn't really this separation of church and state, which when you look at history and you kind of know maybe that's, somewhat true, but it's definitely more complex and nuanced than the way they were presenting it.
You hear this? It's somewhat true. No, it is. You know what? The founding fathers did not intend for the country, the nation, to separate themselves from God. These Democrats, this is how they want to look at the U.S. Constitution, to separate us completely from God. They don't want to have God included in anything.
So lots of red flags are going off.
Lots of red flags were going off. They should say blue flags, right? Because these people are demonic. And you know what? I have a couple more that I want to share with you here. Because I told everyone last night that they are against the U.S. Constitution, and I have proof to show it to you. Because they despise the U.S. Constitution, they can't stand the U.S. Constitution. And here's another clip where she's talking about the U.S. Constitution. This is a short clip, but I want y'all to listen to what she says and talk about how she's saying the U.S. Constitution. Because this mindset that they have about the U.S. Constitution, it's gone viral. It's spread like a bad rash within the Democrat Party. Listen to what she says here about the U.S. Constitution. For me, and I've said this before, and even though I said this before, there was a media company out of Iran. Listen to what I'm telling you. From what I'm about to tell you, there's a media company out of Iran that decided to say that I used their material. I didn't even know who they were. I never used anything from them. I can't even speak the language. But they penalized my page saying that I used their material. And the reason why they did that, because at first I was thinking, why would they do this? But then it dawned on me. It's because I said the Constitution is the second greatest document known to man, the first being the Holy Bible. That's why they did it. They got triggered by it because how dare he say that? And it's still true. It's still true. You can't convince me otherwise. They attack me all the time. These are people in this country. This is a news group out of Iran attacking Will Johnson. I must be hitting a nerve. But listen what she says about the U.S. Constitution. Listen.
Then there is what the trainings had to say about how the courts should interpret the Constitution. In the real world, there is...
In the real world, right? In the real world, the Constitution is plain and simple. They're the ones who wanted to twist it. Just like Roe versus Wade, there's nowhere in the Constitution. If you want to have it, it goes back to the states. It was never in the Constitution. See, this is their mind. In the real world, it was never there, but they want it to be there. Listen.
There is an ongoing debate between two fundamentally oppositional methods of interpretation. On the one side, there is originalism, the belief that courts should interpret the Constitution based on what the founding fathers believed when they wrote it way back in the 18th century.
Way back in the 18th century. You notice how she put that in there? Oh, but that's how they interpret it way back in the 18th century. The First Amendment still applies. I completely understand the First Amendment. Do you? They don't. They reject the First Amendment, and I completely understand the Second Amendment. They like to try to change it up and try to tell you, well, you're not a militia. Every single man and woman in this country, you are part of the militia. You are a well-regulated militia. It is. You are already in it. If you ever went to a gun range and you own a gun, guess what? You are already in it. They don't have to organize it right away. You are already part of it because it's the tyrannical government that's coming for us.
On the other side, the idea that the Constitution is a document whose interpretation evolves throughout the years as American society itself changes.
You hear this? You see, they're trying to change the U.S. Constitution, and they're trying to change it to their demonic needs, to their demonic ways. Come on now. Y'all hear him saying it? You hear her saying it? I'm not the one making it up. She's literally sitting there saying it.
But according to Tatiana, our teacher who sat through these trainings, the state of Florida appears to want teachers to think there is really only one correct view. I'll let you guess which one.
The correct view, okay, is the same when they wrote the Constitution. The Constitution hasn't changed, right? They would like for us to believe that it's changed. But it hasn't. We're not going to go along with this made up version that they have in their heads. I'm not going to do it. You can do it if you want to. I'm not going to. And talking about them removing prayer from schools, I told y'all, they want to remove prayer from schools. They've done it successfully before. And this is what they're talking about. And Ron DeSantis is wanting to say, hey, if children want to be able to pray to Jesus in schools, you should be allowed to. See, again, they don't have a problem with Muslims praying to Muhammad, right? They don't.
I mean, tell me what you see in this slide.
Yeah, so something they did here was they kind of brought up how the Supreme Court is the reason that we have the separation of church and state, not necessarily the Constitution. And so they talked about how through these cases and others, the Supreme Court has interpreted the Constitution to mean this strong separation of church and state. However, through originalism, that might not be what the Constitution was saying. And there
the originalism.
was a strong focus on originalism in terms of kind of understanding the Constitution.
And originalism is seen as the right way to interpret the Constitution?
By way of what we were taught.
Wow, you can't even make this stuff up. And of course, they find a liberal, socialist, communist, democrat liberal to come on there and talk about it. Can I play one more for y'all? Can I play one more for y'all from this idiot? Just one more? Is that okay? I know a lot of people are like, man, it's just disgusting. I guess she replaced Rachel Madcow, or maybe she replaced non-Joy Reid. Maybe, I don't know. Did y'all hear the eunuch Brian Stelter show got canceled too? So something's going on over MSDNC. Maybe this is the only time they actually get the views of when I'm talking about it or when I'm watching them. Something's going on over at MSDNC along with the Communist News Network because people are tired of being lied to. They're fed up with it, but you still got your diehard stupid people out there that's listening to them, right? Well, anyway, she had one more. She had this professor come on there, And a professor was on there, and he's talking about, how the slavery happened here in the United States of America. And because they're saying that Ron DeSantis doesn't want to teach actual history, because Ron DeSantis doesn't want the CRT crap pushed onto the students. That shouldn't even be there. But listen to this. Of course, everything when it comes to these Democrats, everything come back to racism for them. And they're saying white people are the problem. I've said this repeatedly. They're the ones pushing this. I am a ultra MAGA Republican. I have no qualms about it. No issues about it. And y'all see my shirt here, it says Ultra King. MAGA, it says MAGA King. I should put Ultra MAGA King, but it's MAGA King. I am the king. I am the king. And you know who's the King of Kings? Jesus. He's the King of Kings. So a lot of people see this shirt and they're like, MAGA King. Yes, but Jesus is always and always will be the King of Kings. Right? And besides, I like wearing the shirt because liberals get triggered. But anyways, listen to this. Listen to this.
I wonder, when you look at these moments when you have the sort of white patriarchs offering a revisionist history, lost cause, after the Civil War. And again, this sort of revisionist history and white apologia for like white enslavement happens again in the civil rights era when we feel like progress is being made. Do you think that's what's happening now? That the DeSantises of the world, that the organizations that are working to implement this kind of teaching in schools are doing so because they feel like progress is on the doorstep?
She's suggesting here that Ron DeSantis of the world want the same racism that they did, the Democrats did in the United States of America. And he's far from it. Far from it. Same thing with President Trump. Far from it. But they would like for you to believe that it's white Republicans that are the racist ones when they are not. It's been white Democrats. It's always been white Democrats. Now, can white Republicans be racist? Yes. Can black Republicans be racist? Yes. Are black Democrats racist? 100%. Along with white Democrats. It's always been the Democrat Party that's been 100% racist. Now listen to this.
Absolutely. This is the old dictum that he who controls the past controls the present. He who controls the present controls the future. It's kind of very gender skewed analysis of that. But still, the battle over the past is always about the present. And it's about rationalizing a particular state of affairs that we see in the world right now. And
you know what? And this is exactly what I'm referring to. And they've done this so many times. Just like, think about it. They change the definition on things, and the Democrats, they want to change history. I actually talked to a Democrat tonight. There was a Beto O'Rourke event here tonight, and I actually went there. And I told him, I said it was the Republicans that freed the slaves. And he said that was beep, 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 BS. I'm like, really? These people, they don't even think for themselves. They don't have no capacity of understanding anything. But listen to this.
So if you can diminish the claim of what racism and white supremacy have done in the society, you automatically and implicitly diminish the moral claim that people who are the descendants of those groups have in this country right now.
And he's suggesting that Ron DeSantis and the other Republicans in the state of Florida are trying to diminish white supremacy when it was the Democrats that did white supremacy. Even today, it's still the same thing. And they leave that part out. They always leave that key component out, that it was white Democrats, because who freed the black people? Who was it? Was it black people that freed themselves? No. If you're going to be brutally honest, no. It was white Republicans. Not the Democrats, but they want all of us to believe that it was the Democrat Party that did it, and it wasn't.
And so that's what the ballgame is right now. And also, if you can muddy the waters around how difficult it has been for people to achieve citizenship, you can do things that make it more difficult for them to gain access to the vote.
Did you hear that? See, all these people that are coming, the invasion that we're having coming into the country, they want to fast track them to becoming a citizen so then they can vote. Y'all hear this? They're not even hiding the fact of what the plan is any longer. Their agenda, they're not even hiding it.
And so all of these things are about rationalizing present policies.
And
I mean, like I told y'all, I had it. They hate the Constitution. They hate Christianity. I have so much more of that demonic woman, and she just comes right out, and she literally despises Christianity. I mean, it's so wild. And I believe the whole entire network on MSDNC, they hate Christianity. They hate white people to no end, and they use black people for their power. They're the ones doing it. I see it. Once you see the truth, once your eyes are open to it, you cannot shut them down any longer. And I'm praying that someone watching tonight that's probably upset of everything that I'm saying, please just go look for yourself. Do it for yourself. And there's some people say, I don't care. I don't care. They're just going to be angry. They're not going to hear a word that I say. They can care less what I say. They're just going to remain angry. They want to remain angry. They want to be that way. They like being angry. Okay, so like I said, I went out to a Robert Francis O'Rourke, a.k.a. Fake Mexican Beto event tonight. Yes, I did, before I went live. So when I got back, because it was muggy out there and it was humid and sweat and everything, so I had to take a hot shower before I came on and got onto tonight. But I will be releasing that video. I will be releasing that video tomorrow, and it's pretty wild. And my producer, she watched some of it, and she said, how are you laughing talking to him? Because most people talking to these people because they're not saying nothing. I mean, bunch of nothing. And it's to me, it's comical. And it is really comical. So as promised, I will show that tomorrow. And again, thank you so much again for the prayers from last night. I feel energized, ready to go to do God's work. We are in a spiritual battle, people. We are in it right now. One of the liberals that were out there saying, this is a battle between the right and the left. And I said, no, those are just acronyms that we use. Those are just catchphrases. It's a battle between good and evil. And it's only the Democrat Party that support everything of Satan. And this girl, she go, what? Satan? What does Satan got to do with anything? What? They reject God. They reject God. And for me to sit there and talk about all this stuff is really remarkable. Just think about what I'm saying for just 1 second. Just tune in for 1 second. Think about our world today. Think about the stuff that they are doing. This stuff is not even called for. It's not even necessary. They're more concerned about pushing wokeness than they are about doing policies that benefit the American people. Why do we even have to have the discussion about this stuff? It's because this is their target, children and wokeness. All right, with that said, hey, y'all be on the lookout for that video tomorrow. I didn't have time to get it edited. I will upload it. I will have it ready for you bright and early in the morning. All right, be sure to make sure you tune in for that. Well, but before we go out of here, let me go look to see if anybody blessed me, send me any blessings before I get out of here, because I like to acknowledge people that send me blessings before we go. Tammy, thank you so much for the stars. Thank you so much, Tammy. And then we have Michelle. Thank you so much for the stars as well. And Christia, thank you so much. And then Rebecca, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And then Al Jahir, thank you so much. Karen, thank you so much for the stars. And then Mary, thank you for the stars. And then Joe, thank you for the stars. Wendy, thank you for the stars. Dano, if I'm saying it right, thank you for the stars. Corey, thank you for the stars as well. And Robin, thank you for the stars. Wow, Chuck, thank you for the stars. I really do appreciate everybody. Victoria, thank you so much for the Cash App. It's really a blessing. Thank you so much. And Ann, thank you so much for the PayPal. It really makes a difference, everybody. Thank you so much for all of your support. Hey, can I tell y'all about something really quick? Can I put this in here? I think it's safe for me to put it in here. If you go to my website and you click on sponsors, there's a link that you can click there. But I want y'all to go to mystore.com. Y'all see this? This is my coffee. And I'm just putting it out there. Now, I'm not even really a big coffee drinker, but here lately I've been, finding myself, wanting a cup of coffee. And I've been talking about this, and I'm not just saying this so you go out there and get you some, but try it out. But if you're going to try it out, use my promo code UNITES1. Use my promo code UNITES1. I'm trying to do a little plug here before I go. So this is my coffee that you can get at mystore.com, my coffee at mystore.com. Use promo code UNITES1 and get the discount on it. So it's my coffee. It's in my cup. What's in your cup? Is it a little cheesy? Does it work? Does it work? Cool. Hey, again, thanks everybody for being here. Please hit the share button on this. Please hit the share button. If you don't do anything, please at least bless me by hitting the share button. God bless everybody. Reality check.